Now in this video I'll be discussing some of the preliminary concepts before we start studying about the details of railway engineering. Now there's a typical term that we use just like how we have roadways and airways. There's a typical term that we use for the path upon which the trains are going to move, which is technically called as a permanent way. So a permanent way is the combination of rails fitted on the sleeper, resting on ballasts, and again this whole combination rests on the subgrade, and the whole system which gets formed is called as a permanent way. So the permanent way is different than the other way that we say or term as a temporary way. So a temporary way is different from permanent way in a way that they are temporarily constructed to finish the construction of a permanent way, or these temporary ways will be laid just to finish the construction of a permanent way, and it would be used to transport the construction goods till the place of construction or the site where the construction is going on. And once the construction of the permanent way is done, the temporary way would be removed and it would be dismantled. So that is the difference between a temporary way and that of a permanent way. Okay, so the definition of permanent way is very important for you to remember. Now there's a typical cross section that you need to know about how the permanent way would look like. So if this is the ground level, okay, you need to prepare the existing level, and the existing level will be prepared in the form of a formation, right, which might be preparation of the existing ground by collecting the soil from different places or borrowed from different place and placed it at the site, or it can be the same soil being tilled and graded to the required specification. Okay, so this is considered to be as the formation. Right, now obviously it would be in the form of a trapezoidal section with certain side slope of this embankment structure. It can be in the form of an embankment in places, or it can be just a formation in the form of a trapezoidal section. So this is the formation. It will have the formation width being shown as the top width of the trapezoidal section, okay, of the formation, and similarly you will be having a distinctive bottom width. So normally the slope that we provide at the for the formation is 2 is to 1 as per the standards. And then above this formation is usually made out of the existing soil at the site, or it can be borrowed from the neighboring places, nearby places, in case if you find that the formation soil is not satisfying the required specification, right. So it behaves similar to the subgrade what we have in roadways. Above this formation you will be having a section which we call as the sub ballast muram. Okay, and above this sub ballast muram you will be having the ballast section. Ballasts are basically the crushed stones which will be packed together by vibratory modes, and this ballast section is basically it can be of any material. We will be studying in detail about what different forms of ballast material can be used. Okay, but generally the ideal ballast material are the crushed stones that we find in stone quarries. Okay, whereas the sub ballast is actually made out of muram, which is basically responsible to behave as a separation between the formation and that of the ballast section, and to some extent it behaves as a drainage layer. Okay, and these ballasts that we have here, okay, they are unbound ballasts that we are going to use as the ballast material. Unbound in the sense that you are not going to use any kind of binder to bind all these ballasts together. right? It will be generally packed and densified by means of vibratory modes, and then you will be preparing the layer. Okay, so this is about ballast. Now within this ballast you will be sinking in the sleepers. So these are the transverse members which will be holding the longitudinal members called as rails, and these rails are the one that will be actually giving a platform for the vehicles to move upon. Okay, so this is the path. So these are called as rails. Typically they are I section metal member or metallic member, the composition and specification of which we shall be discussing in the later part. Now, the clear distance between the inner surfaces of the head of the rails. Now, rail again has three different parts into it. One is the head, then the web, and then the foot. Foot is the section of the rail upon which the whole rail is going to rest, right? And will be in contact with the sleeper. So, the clear distance between the inner surfaces of the rail is considered to be as the gauge, and there's a gap between the edge of the sleeper till the edge of the ballast layer, and that is what we call as the ballast cess. Typically again this will be having a slope of 1.5 is to 1, and these specifications are what you need to remember in case if you are asked in the examination, right? So that is the explanation about the permanent way. You can just go through the writings which I have given in my notes, right? Now to talk about the requirements of an ideal permanent way. Now you are clear about what a permanent way is, how you define it, and how it actually looks like. So a typical permanent way will be having its ideal requirements, meeting which it serves the purpose in a much effective way as the engineers expect it to be, right? So a permanent way is considered to be as a semi-elastic medium, and being semi-elastic in medium, it is expected to absorb these stresses and shocks uniformly and then distribute it to the underlying layers, okay, or the ground that is there below it. So usually the permanent way, they get disturbed with time, as in how the vehicle starts moving on it, it starts losing its stability, and hence you need proper maintenance and operation, which is frequently expected to be done for safe and smooth travel of huge vehicles. Okay, so some of the basic requirements for an ideal permanent way is that the gauge should be correct and uniform. The rails should be at proper level. Both the rails, okay, the inner rail and the outer rail in a permanent way. When I talk about a single track section, okay, the rails are expected to be at a proper level. Then the alignment should be correct throughout. Gradient should be uniform and gentle. You cannot expect the gradient that we find in roller coasters. Obviously, the people who are wanting to travel for long distances, they want the travel to be as comfortable as possible. So the change in gradient need to be very uniform, and it should be in such a way that you hardly feel the change in the gradient while the vehicle is traveling at certain high speed for long distances. Then the track should be elastic and they must absorb the shocks much effectively, right? The track should have enough lateral strength. Curve radius and super elevation should be properly designed. This comes under geometric design of railway tracks, which we will be studying in detail in the later part. The drainage system must be perfect. It should not allow the water to stagnate on the surface, thereby loosening the material and disturbing the stability of the railway track. Joints in railway, uh, for example, you cannot have, suppose if you want a railway track to be laid from one place to the other place and the distance between the two is say 200 kilometers. You cannot have one single rail of length 200 kilometers. You will be finding these rails in a typical standard sections when they are manufactured in the rail industries. Okay, so these rails, when they have to be placed at the site, they will have to be connected, and these sections where the connections are made are considered as joints in rail. Okay, so the joints in rails are the weakest section in the railway track, and that is where, if it is not properly maintained, accidents might take place, failure of the system also might take place. So joint need to be properly designed and maintained time and then. Right. Then the components of permanent way must be satisfying the requirements as per the specifications that are being levied by the authorities. Okay, and there must be also provisions made for renewal and replacement at a lower cost, or at an economical cost, which ensures the maintenance cost to be on the lower side. So these are some of the ideal requirements of a typical permanent way. You can have many other requirements as per your knowledge and by using your common sense. Okay, so these are some of the ideal requirements. Now there are some typical cross sections you need to know. Most of the cross sections are there in the textbook which I have prescribed to you during my first few classes in the university. Okay, so I have suggested the textbook by S.K. Khanna, which is on railway engineering. I suppose you all have this by now. So you need to study and learn all the cross sections that are being given in the textbook. One such or a few such cross sections I have already drawn here, and we shall be discussing about their dimensions and specifications. So this is a typical cross section of a single track broad gauge railway track in embankment. Now it depends on how the question can be asked in the examination. If I ask you to draw the typical cross section of a single track, a broad gauge track in embankment, then it would look somewhat like this. But if it comes under cutting, then it should look like it is being cut through a hillock. So you will be having the cut portion and the leftover portion also being shown in the diagram. Okay, now coming to the typical cross section of this, considering this as the ground level. Okay, you will be having the longitudinal drains here, the bottom width of it which is 0.9 meters, and the top width is expected to be around 5.5 meters. Okay, so 5.5 meters on the either side is the space where the longitudinal drains can be provided. Okay, then you have the formation, and this formation again, the top width of the formation is expected to be around 6.1 meters, and the bottom width depends upon the depth of the formation that you are going to give. If d is the depth of the formation, then this distance, okay, ahead of the top width of the formation is 2 times d on either side. Slope is expected to be around 2:1, and above this you can provide the ballast cushion. So ballast cushion should be in such a way that the minimum or the optimum depth below the sleeper, from the bottom of the sleeper till the top of the formation, is 20.3 centimeters. Okay, so this would be the sleeper. On the either side you will have to leave 12.7 centimeters, such that the slope attained is 1.5:1. So since this is a broad gauge, as I told you, gauge is considered to be as the clear distance between the inner surfaces of the head of the rails. So for broad gauge it will be 1.676 rounded off to 1.7 meters. So that is the gauge of the track. Right. In case if you are asked to draw a typical cross section for a meter gauge, it would be 1 meter, and so on. So there are number of gauges that we have in our Indian specification. You have narrow gauge, meter gauge, and then broad gauge, the details of which we will be studying in the classes ahead, right? Then the width of the sleeper would be 2.7 meters, and the top width of the ballast cushion is 3.4 meters, right? So apart from this, you need to remember the permanent land and the equation for the permanent land that need to be reserved for the construction, maintenance and expansion of these kind of tracks. So normally the permanent land would be equal to, for a single track, would be equal to 17.1 plus 4 times the embankment depth in meters. So this is the equation, general equation that you need to remember about the permanent land to be fixed for a broad gauge track in embankment, right? Now next, talking about the broad gauge track, here you will be having two such tracks, broad gauge track in cutting. So this is what I meant to say. So you will be having the berms being shown. So these are the berm, okay, on the either side. So you'll be having two such railway tracks here. The center to center spacing of the railway track is uh, expected to be around 4.3 meters. You need to show the dimensions of all these components as well, like how it was shown here in the previous diagram, okay? So the center to center spacing is 4.3 meters, and this finished surface is what is expected to be turfed, right? The turfing need to be done, and on both the sides you will be having the side drains like this, okay? And then the cutting would be done to the required slope depending upon the geological investigation or geotechnical investigation done at the site, right? So the bottom width of the formation that you're going to give is 3.9 meters, and the turfed section will have a top width of 10.2 meters, and from the edge of the outer edge of the longitudinal drains you are expected to provide 12.5 meters, and then the cutting is expected to be 12.5 meters plus the depth of cutting. The depth of cutting is this, okay? So that's about the section. On the either side, at the berm section, you will be having 3.6 meters left from the edge of the berm, and then you will be having the spoil banks on the either side. And in some cases, if there's a hillock that gets continued in the vertical direction, then you need to provide check drains or check water drains, or it is also called as the catch water drains, okay? So the bottom width of the catch water drain is expected to be 0.9 meters, top width is 1.8 meters, and this would start 3 meters away from the edge of the berm, okay? Now this again has a permanent land equation. So the land that need to be reserved here is 21.6 meters plus depth multiplied by 3, depth of cutting multiplied by 3, plus the spoil bank dimension, okay? So this is the general equation for the broad gauge track in cutting. Then you have the electrical traction track. You already might have understood what this is about. So you might have seen the railway tracks which will be running upon electric traction. Now what is traction and which are the different forms of it, we shall study in the next chapter. But when the vehicle or the trains are moving with the help of electrical energy, the traction is taking place because of electrical energy, and that's why it is called as electric traction, right? So the broad gauge track with electric traction, here I have shown double track, okay? Similarly you can be asked about a single track also. Now it would look somewhat like this. You will be having the formation of slope 2:1, and at the edge of the formation you will be having the required foundation being given for the frame structure to be placed, which will be holding the catenary contacts or the cables, okay? So at the track stations or along the railway track, you can have these steel structure been laid in such a way that it need not be a permanent one, it can be a portable one also, which can be shifted from place to place. And this is the structure which will be holding the catenary contact, and in contact with this, the trains will be moving ahead. Okay, so you have these two railway tracks which has been separated by 0.75 meters from each other through the edge of the formation, and then below this you will be having the sub ballast cushion in case if required, and then these two are the ballast cushions what we have. And this would be the rail level, and the distance of the center of one railway track from the edge of this uh, steel structure would be 3.12 meters on either side. So the center to center spacing between these two railway tracks is expected to be 4.35 meters. Right. Now the distance between the rail level and that of the first catenary contact is expected to be 5.7 meters. That means that the height of the vehicle can be slightly less than this 5.7 meters, but the arm which comes in contact with the catenary contact will be having its own flexibility, and that would be in touch with this catenary contact. So this is the cross section. So the cable gets cut, and you will be able to see the cable in the form of dots. Okay, and hence these cables are called as catenary contacts. Okay, so this is about the broad gauge track with electric traction. So these are the typical cross sections what we can expect to be asked in the examination. You are expected to know all the dimensions. The further details of this can be taken. There are some of the cross sections which I have not drawn here in this note. So yeah, the detailed study need to be done by using the textbook. So you need to refer to the textbook that has been prescribed to you. So this is the end of this video. I shall continue the video in the next one.